Hello and greetings from Mumbai, India. It's exciting for me to be back in India for the fourth time. It's a pretty incredible place where I am right now, and it's really pretty relevant to my research interests because Mumbai is a place where you can find lots of different cultures smashed together. And my real perspective and interest is about how international and domestic students on a college campus interact. So as far as my foundations for the study, first of all, my philosophical foundation was really very well illustrated by the Shannon Baker article. That in particular, my although I can certainly see aspects of pragmatism and critical realism, as well as dialectics, the one that makes the most sense for me is the transformative emancipatory because I really am looking for ways for students to really express their ideas and opinions, international students specifically, in the hopes of really helping them to create change on campus. And specifically, I'm interested in working with a small group of international students to really empower them to have a bigger impact from their perspective and to be able to have a more long term perspective and really enhance the internationalization process that is available at Xavier University. Um, as far as the theoretical perspective I'm bringing to the study, specifically I'm using a theory called post-colonial theory. And there are four main components of that. The first being a critique of Orientalism or international studies or global studies, something like that, which is Edward Said, mainly focused on this concept, the concept of the other, meaning that the perspective of cultural scholars tended to be that their own culture, their own European or American culture in most cases, was superior to whatever other culture they were considering, and so there was this kind of difference in terms of perspective in that sense. Then that led to a concept of what was called subaltern studies. And so this concept of subaltern studies actually built off the work of Edward Said and was informed by people by Spivak, as well as Guha and Gramsci. And the idea was basically to focus on this other and really study this concept for the first time. So the emphasis was not on studying global leaders or prominent figures within a society, but really focusing on people who were kind of everyday figures within a society and really focusing on their experiences versus the rich and powerful. The third pillar is what's called a contact zone, and that's a idea that came from Mary Louise Pratt. And the focus is the idea of how the concept of bringing together various cultures in one space and seeing the impact of their interactions. So, for example, in the colonial setting, looking at opportunities where conquistadors or explorers interacted with indigenous people, often with catastrophic results for those indigenous people, but also just looking in general about how those zones where this interaction took place and taking that into the educational setting and various other places as well, really worked to explore how those interactions and what were the long-term implications of those interactions. And finally, there's the perspective of hybridism, which is actually from Homi Bhabha, and that is regarding the idea that once two cultures interact, they don't really ever stay the same. They're not pure in the sense that they were previously, but that they start to adopt features of each other. And so that concept of really working with various cultures and seeing perspectives when the interaction takes place. So that theoretical lens is really informing my study. And as far as my own experiential learning, my own experiences of being an international student, starting from when I was 13 and lived a year in Australia, to a couple of different study abroad programs as a student, as a university student, an undergrad, to living abroad in Chile for 2.5 years, and having engaging in various intercultural experiences since. So I'm very much a proponent of intercultural interaction, and so that's really my perspective of bringing to the table, and certainly it will influence the course of my study throughout the semester. So I hope that's a good perspective on what I'm hoping to do for my project, and I look forward to discussing it further with you when I'm finally back in class here in about 2 weeks. So take care.